Next up we have the Dominion here. They're probably the most difficult of all the factions to play, mainly because they are, well, at least in this, they consist of 3 different races combined, none of which really work well together. Each one of them separately is kind of nice. Together they complement each other in certain ways, but their abilities really don't cross over as well. You have your Breen ships over here on the end. Breen ships are kind of fragile, have a decent offensive ability, but lots of tech and weapon upgrades available. You have your Cardassian ships, which are strong offensive and defensive wise, but can't maneuver to save their life, and don't have really that many options available to them. And then you have your Dominion, which have the smaller attack ships, which have lots of options but lack a real offense or defense. Then you have your battleship in the back, which has massive attack and decent defense, but no maneuverability. So they all kind of have their strengths and weaknesses. This one here is actually the Jem'Hadar Dreadnought, which is supposed to be coming out in July. I converted over a HeroClick figure. I prefer the Cardassians myself. They're just my favorite of the faction. I have a buddy of mine who loves the Jem'Hadar, so he's got tons of those. And the Breen are just kind of there. I love the Breen ships. I just don't like the way they mesh with the rest of the stuff. They do have some really cool options. Captain-wise, the Dominion has some of the lowest captains in the game. The newest set, these two actually compare with the Romulans, which still puts us on par with the lower end. But a lot of our other captains are down there in the spectrum. Some decent abilities. Gul Dukat's ability to give you a free evasion or battle stations is amazing. Thought Pran's kind of limited to the Disruptor. Weyoun's not bad. Has some really broken combos with him. And then they go down from there. Captains are not going to be your specialty. Aside from Dukat, there's really no must-have. And unless you're doing one of the combos with Weyoun. On to elite talents. The elite talents, there's only 3 to choose from. They have their uses. None of them are spectacular. Ketracel is probably the most useful to re-enable all of your crew after they've done their abilities. Invaluable Advice gives you a free battle station. They have uses, nothing spectacular. Depending on the ships you're bringing. If you're bringing the Breen ships, you're going to be wanting to use your tech and weapon upgrades. You bring the Cardassian ships, you're going to be focusing on your main primary weapons most of the time. And your Dominion ships, or your Jem'Hadar ships, you're going to be looking at secondary weapons for the Beetles and primaries for the bigger ships, along with some tech upgrades possibly. So into our weapon options, the Dominion get the worst photon torpedoes out of any of the factions. They have range 1 to 3, which is nice, but they have no special ability, where all the others have some kind of thing that lets you reroll or convert certain results. So, honestly, they're kind of the crappiest ones you can get. Dorsal Weapons Array is a great one that they have. It gives some of the big unmaneuverable ships, namely the Cardassian ones and the battleships, 360-degree arc of fire. Can be nice, does get disabled, but it gives you a chance to shoot at people who are trying to move into your blind spot. The phased Polaron beam, there's a couple different versions of it. This one's really useful, especially in the new Borg meta that's going around, as you can ignore shields to get you past those 8 shields on some of those Borg ships. Forward Weapons Grid is an interesting card. If you can find a way to get this on some of the smaller ships that don't have as high of attack, bumping them up to 5 is really nice. Unfortunately, I don't think they have weapon slots. The patrol ships might, but it's a good idea for those. Same goes with enhanced weaponry. I'm not too fond of this one. It has its uses, but it requires a target lock, which in that case you might as well just be using torpedoes. But gives you the extra die from the Keldon class, but you're better off firing with your main weapon on them. Energy Dissipators, where the Dominion weapon upgrades really shine. You hit somebody with this, knocks out their shields, knocks out their ability to maneuver. I believe it even knocks out their ability to attack for a turn. And they have to spend their next turn trying to get rid of that energy dissipation token, or they're pretty much screwed. Downside is the range 1, so getting in range to use it is kind of difficult, but if you can hit with it, they do some mean things. Knocks out cloaking devices too, which is nice. Then we got a few useful tech upgrades. Cold storage gives you 2 extra weapon slots with all the interesting weapons that the Dominion get that can come in handy. Anti-proton scan, good against cloaked ships. E-impulse, another one that's decent against cloaked ships. Tachyon scan, another one that's good against cloaked ships. I'm sensing a theme here, in case you didn't notice. The cloaking device has its uses on the Keldon class ships. You can cloak them, get that extra defense, but at the same time you're taking the extra action to reactivate it every turn. And it costs more to put on any other ship, so it has uses. It's not going to see a lot of use outside the Keldon class. Suicide attacks, a hit or miss type thing. Does a lot of damage, has a good potential. Lining it up is kind of difficult, and the fact that you're spending 5 points and sacrificing a 20 some odd point ship to do it kind of limits its use. But I've seen swarms of attack ships using suicide attack actually do quite well. Shroud's probably one of their best tech upgrades. Can be combined with Weiyun and some other cards to basically make infinite combos of really disgusting things. Tetrion emissions is a action. It also disables, so you have to spend time to re-enable, but it gives you almost the same as a cloaking device. Plus 3 dice each time you defend the round. These I could see being used on some of the larger ships to give it some evasion. Then we have our Dominion flagship. Scan's nice, they have a lot of abilities that trigger off a scan. Get that extra tech and weapon upgrade slot. And then when defending, all friendly Dominion ships within range 1 to 2 can convert a blank into a evade. That's always nice. And you get the extra evade and hull and shield, which come in useful. Not my favorite of the flagship cards, but definitely a playable one. I forgot to mention, as I did with the other factions, the Dominion have the purple bases, which, while not as bright as the other factions, look really good on the Jem'Hadar ships. I have my entire Cardassian fleet mounted on mine right now because that's what I play the most, but definitely I love the colored bases, and now that you can buy them separate, they're really cool. So like I said, the thing with the Dominion is you got 3 different factions actually working together. Each one has their own specialties. If you try to stick to one faction of the 3, you're going to run into weaknesses. The main thing, like the Cardassian ships, don't have a lot of maneuverability. They have good firepower, good armor, but not a lot of maneuverability, so you're going to get outmaneuvered. You want to have a good mix of the ships to throw either some Breen ships or some attack squadrons in there to get around behind people and keep them from getting in behind you. At the same time, things like the attack ship, the Beetles there, don't have a lot of offense, don't have a lot of defense. If you run an army just of those, you're going to run into problems where you can't do enough damage or you can't absorb enough damage. So a good way to play the Dominion is a nice mix of the different ships and the different abilities and cards that go with them. Definitely the hardest of the original factions to play. They do take a lot of skill, a lot of finesse. They're not just a run in and punch people in the face like the Klingons. They don't have the amazing crewmen to bail them out like the Federation do. They rely a lot on their tech upgrades and their ability to work together to achieve a goal. You use a Breen cruiser to hit somebody with an energy dissipator, which knocks out their shields, which lets your heavy hitters take them out in one shot. All the Cardassian ships, except for the fighters, have the 180-degree arc of fire to compensate slightly for their lack of maneuverability. So you can almost always keep people in your arc of fire unless they get around behind you. Things like the battleship has a huge amount of firepower it can shell out. The beetle ships have their suicide attacks and things like that. The polaron beams, they all work together to make a really cohesive team, but any one of the factions alone definitely has its weaknesses. They're one of my favorite ones. I didn't get to use them a lot during the Dominion War because we only had the Gaylor class available at the time. The others didn't come out until much later. So I started off with the Romulans and just kind of stuck with them. But they are definitely fun to play. The large arcs of fire are fun to mess with. The tech upgrades from the Breen are definitely fun to play with. And the Dominion have all sorts of abilities. In the newer waves against Borg and things, you're going to find the Dominion crewmen. There's a lot of ones in there that kill off opponents' crewmen or disable opponents' crewmen. They're going to be very useful in getting rid of captains and crew on the Borg ships that can use assimilation tubules. You'll be able to knock those out. The 7 of 9 who lets you regenerate the drone tokens, you'll be able to knock that out. Things like that are definitely going to be useful. Again, they're a fun faction. They take a lot more skill, I think, than the other ones to play well. But in a casual format, they're a blast to play. In a organized play format, you're going to have to be a really good player to use them effectively. But they can be done. And that's about it for the Dominion. I will see you in the next video.